All right, it is Inauguration Day 2023. And yes, we do have a new president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Welcome to Inauguration Day broadcast. My name is Cynthia Agbo, and we intend to go down memory lane as well as celebrate with the new president on this very, very wonderful occasion for Nigerians. As you can see that at the Eagle Square it was packed full with lots of people from all over the world, different heads of state. Now, some persons will say that this is one of the most well attended inauguration, in Nigeria. We have heads of state from different countries, and I mean lots of African countries as well, and also representatives from all around the world, and it's a beautiful one. So it might be filled with mixed feelings, as some Nigerians feel that it wasn't supposed to be like this. I think up until the particular hour where he took that oath of office, some persons were still expecting a miracle. But I mean, what other miracle than him taking the oath? Well, I will not be talking about the inauguration day on May 29th alone. I am joined in the studio with me, amazing persons and analysts who are going to be sharing, talking about Nigeria's democracy from 1999 to 2023. How have we fared so far? Looking at past presidents, up until this time, have we progressed? Have there been a retrogression? And also, we'll be assessing the Buhari-led administration. Did he do so well? What were the highlights? I mean, what can we say about the administration? And of course, we then delve into what the current administration, talking about the Tinubu-led administration, what he can do, the kind of people that probably he shouldn't surround himself with. That would be some of the things we'll be talking about. Don't forget that we also have documentaries and, of course, vox pop opinions of Nigerians that you are also going to be looking at this time. A very short break, but we'll come back. We go straight to the conversation. All right, welcome back. It is inauguration 2023, and I would just introduce my guests. They are all looking bright and wonderful. I mean, it's a day of celebration. What else do you expect? So I have next to me Barrister Adewale Fajana.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, everyone. Congratulations, Nigeria. It's a new dawn. Good to be here.
Mm.
Thank you.
Barrister Adewale is a legal practitioner and, of course, a political analyst. And I also have Comrade Samuel Danjuma. When we say comrade, it just is the entirety of everything. Good to have you, comrade.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a new dawn, like my brother said. A new face, and I think our new slogan is the new realm or the regime of the Emilio Cons, and Emilio Con has come to stay.
Mm.
So I admonish every Nigerian. I solicit for the support of every Nigerian for this new administration with great hopes and aspirations, and I know Nigeria will get to a promised land.
Hmm. Okay, so I'm very, very sure that at this point, hopes are not exactly high. This is a very unique, from the elections to the announcement of the results till the inauguration. If I am to describe it with, which is not exactly my place to describe it, but I would say that hopes are not really high. If you look at the atmosphere, if you look at the feelings of people, when you hear people, you go to the streets, you hear the opinions of people, hopes are not exactly high compared to that of 2015.
True. True.
Where we had the change mantra. Hopes were high because of the surroundings and everything that was happening with the Jonathan administration. So before we come to this Emilio, before we come to the renewed hope as the slogan is, you know, let's come back. Let us start from 1999 very briefly. Then we, you know, progress to this phase that we found ourselves. Now in 1999, which was, you know, handing over from the military to democracy officially, after this very brief period years back, we had Obasanjo, and then we progressed from Obasanjo to blessed memory late Yaradua, and then from there, Dr. Goodluck and Bella Jonathan took over, and then we have Buhari. Would you say? Let me start with you. Would you say that our democracy has progressed?
Great question, and it's always good to go back the memory lane, because if we don't know where we're coming from, we may not be able to appreciate and evaluate where we're at. So, 1999, Nigeria was just coming out of the grip of the military, and then of course we're experimenting with democracy, and we had a new constitution, we had a general who was imprisoned, released back, new political parties, and then of course, you know, we had President Olusegun Obasanjo. So when he came in, the first campaign was to try and deepen democracy and then entrench the culture and the attitude of democratic practices in Nigeria. He made his mistakes. You know, there was a lot of concerns around, you know, the stability in the National Assembly. Every other period, he was just changing his Senate president. But Obasanjo laid the foundation for a new democratic experience. However, I thought that there could have been more. I thought that, of course, we had most of these agencies coming up, the EFCC, ICPC. So it was a moment where Nigeria needed to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of democratic experience. So that was the new dawn, you know, at that period. I think that was the Fourth Republic, all right? So Nigeria needed to get away from the jugular of the military, and then, of course, you know that there is still this this mental or psychological, you know, perception that I was a general, a military general. I can still do things the way I want it. I command and you level OD. So all of those experiences were prime at that time. But 20-something years down the line, I think Nigeria had progressed from that kind and that style. If you look at our election or electioneering, electoral practices, in those days, somebody would just sit down somewhere and write results, and then that was it. All right. In those days, the president would give an order, and then they would remove a governor, and then declare state of emergency. Nigeria had gone past those dark days of democratic experimentation. All right. But we're maturing. We're getting better. We're not perfect. I don't think the last elections were the best. The concerns are there, and that's one of the reasons why there was a lot of expectation that there will be change. There will be economic growth, all right? There will be, corruption was a big deal under President Obasanjo, Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
so people were expecting that there will be a clear departure from all of that. But Nigeria is still trying to find its feet, and I hope we get there, you know, soonest. Soonest.
I know, Comrade, you really want to add something to this.
Yeah, are we doing well? No, but better than where we're coming from.
Absolutely.
Because I always tell people that the worst of a democratic government is better than the best of the military regime.
Absolutely.
We knew what Nigeria was prior to 2019 and to 1999. There was no freedom of speech.
Yeah.
People were being killed. People were being jailed without fair hearing, and all that. We know the kind of atrocities. We remember when the Chief Olusegun Obasanjo's government came into power, and the first thing they did was the Oputa panel, trying to reconcile people, trying to make peace, make people understand that this is a new dawn, this is a new regime, this is democracy. It's now the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. They did their own best. Handed over. I think the best thing every Nigerian, or what every Nigerian should be happy for, is that we have been able to be consistent for the first time. Remember 60 to 66, the coup. We tried the 76 again. It didn't work. We came back in 79, 83, the coup, 1993, and all that. At least for the first time, 20, almost 24 years. Wow.
Yeah.
I think we're progressing. We are not where we are supposed to be, but we are making progress. And I think there's room for improvement. And like you talked about hopes, yeah, for some, there's lots of hope. I would want the same thing that happened, though this government is different from the 2015. 2015 came up with a lot of goodwill. A lot of people were eager, were longing for change, trying to change government and know what was really happening. If it was the PDP that was the problem, and there was a new party in town, everybody felt that okay, the Buhari government has been trying to be president for a long time, and I hope he has a lot of things for Nigeria and things are going to change. Remembering what he did in 1983 when he was president, 84, and knowing that when he comes, corruption will not. I'm sure by now,
Nigerians know
your
better.
guess as good as mine.
You went back to when he was, that was in the military
Yes.
time.
Yeah, 83, 84.
Would you, some persons have contrary opinions saying that one of the reasons why people conversed and bought and were lured into the change advocacy was because they lack knowledge of their history to know that there were certain loopholes at the time when he was the head then.
That's true.
But you seem to share a different opinion.
No, I still agree with them. Because Alex Okweme of blessed memory said something. He said if you allow history repeat itself, it becomes disastrous. 83, 84 was the first time Nigeria went into recession. Who was our president? Former President Muhammadu Buhari, now former. The next time we went into recession again was between 2015 and 2019 again. Who was president? Former President Muhammadu Buhari. So, these are the people were going through hell. My dad used to tell me, he said a lot of people queued when there was this change of currency, and it still played again
Same-
in 2020.
same
again.
script.
So, like it said, I don't know if it's all right to use this word. They said a leopard doesn't change his sport at old age. It's not possible. People were deceived. I think what really played out was the media was used to whitewash the person of former President Muhammadu Buhari, and people bought into it. And it's high time we stop playing politics with emotion, sentiment, religion, and ethnicity. This was part of the things that helped him get into power. And I'm sure even our president now would have sat and asked himself if truly what he did to bring in Muhammadu Buhari was the right thing. But thank God he did, because if Buhari did not win the election in 2015, Nigerians would have still been saying if Buhari was president, Nigeria would have been Dubai by now, Nigeria would have been better than the United States of America, the dollar would have been 1 naira, but you all know where we are today. So thank God he came.
Okay, so we are going to be stepping into the very pertinent issues, which is assessing just this particular past administration. I mean, it feels a bit strange, you know. Just few minutes ago, a few hours ago, we were saying our president, you know, the whole standing ovation, the applaud whenever he's around, the respect accorded to him. But now, like they say, power is transient. So, I mean, all that is gone. So he's now former. So he was in power from 2015, 2019, and then 2023. And it would be unfair for us to say that he was just there. I mean, let us now go into some of the things, you know, some of his. I would like to call them achievements. I don't know. You might have other names, you know, words for it.
Do we really have achievements? I would like to read out something by a former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Shehu Sani. He said, and I quote, "He led the country without any economic direction. He presided over a government that failed to secure the lives of Nigerians, 63,000 dead, 3 million IDP camps, and 360 refugees in neighboring countries. He failed to restructure as he promised. He guaranteed waiver to the rich and impoverished the poor. He closed the borders for those who imported bags of rice on motorbikes and permitted those who used the ships to import them." So where are the achievements?
Let's talk about the legislative reforms, the executive orders, the infrastructure. You will agree with me that the former president actually tried in the area of infrastructure.
A government who said national security supersedes the rule of law. And you want to tell me he actually did reforms in the legislature?
So I would take a different route, but eventually we may get into the same destination.
Okay.
Because when the government came in, we knew that Nigeria had to catch up in 2015. We had challenges with most of our laws that were old and dated. Of course, President Buhari, as former President Muhammadu Buhari, was able to spearhead some sections of reforms using the legislature between 2015 to 2019 and 2019 to 2023. But if you look at even that legislature, you will know that there was a crisis when the APC sponsored someone else to be Senate President. However, the opposition ganged up and hijacked. That was the beginning of the crisis. We had budgets that were delayed, they were not passed.
His ministers were not.
Yeah, appointed, in good time. All right. But
But
however,
cabinet.
there were some legislative shifts which we had that redefined the experience Nigeria had. When he knew he couldn't get the National Assembly to pass his laws, he started to introduce the executive orders. So executive order on local content, on local production, on a couple of them, on road infrastructure, tax credit schemes, which were some of the things he used to drive, the interventions that he did. For instance, in road construction, the bridges, the power, a couple of achievements in that regard, because of course you have rails running across some parts of the country, not concluded, all right? However, PMB delivered some rails, all right? But the question around security now made those infrastructural achievements to become meaningless. Because what am I doing on a rail when I know if I go 30 kilometers into Kaduna or Jere, some bandits are going to come out and shoot at people, kidnap people right on the rail, the infrastructure that used to be the flagship or the pride of the administration. So it's a bit of a mix of both worlds. Yes, achievements in terms of diversification of the economy, introduced the TSA. It was very good. However, on the overall, you would like to, the economic indices, made it very clear that there was a bit of lack of economic direction. And I will cite examples. When he came in, the first decision he made was that Nigerian banks should not accept dollar deposits anymore. And you know what people did? They felt, perfect. You don't want me to put my dollar in the banks? I'll put it in a hole in my house. I'll put it under my bed. And that triggered the shortage of forex in the banking system. It now placed a heavy burden on our forex reserves, which eventually led us, to the economic downturn when the prices of oil tanked, and then Nigeria was sending just about $23 per barrel on oil. Because ordinarily the dollars that would have been in the system would have been deposited in the bank, but people deposited in the bank, they couldn't withdraw. The banks actually rejected dollar deposits because the government was trying to use an analog system to pursue people and go to their houses, check in their cupboards. Of course, there was a systemic reaction, and people kept their dollars away from Nigeria. Terrible.
Now, when you give the credit for the rails to the Buhari administration, it's funny. Why did I say it's funny? Is that before the inception of the Buhari administration, which has just ended some few hours ago, the rails was a reform of the Goodluck Jonathan administration. By the time Jonathan was leaving, most of these rails were over 80-90% completed.
Okay.
Now,
I'll disagree, but I'll let you finish.
The TSA you're talking about was also a brainwork of the Goodluck Jonathan administration. And the only reason why it was not implemented before he left was, one, he thought he was going to come back. Then when he comes back, because there were little modalities that needed to be worked out.
Yeah.
Because the day-to-day running of the government needed some funds to be made available for the running of the government, so that the whole thing will not become cumbersome. So, giving the glory to the Buhari administration, it's laughable.
So if I get you correctly, you are saying that you can't say that he finished, started works of the previous administration, so he cannot take the overall credit.
Yes, that's one. Then two, you talked about the
Infrastructure.
not the infrastructure. Now you talk about diversifying our economy and the rest of them. The agricultural sector. We all know the drama that was acted here in Abuja, the rice pyramid, that lasted for just 3 days and vanished into thin air. Is that what we're talking about?
So
Before the Buhari administration, we were buying bag of rice for less than 10,000 naira, 50 kg bag of rice. Today, as I speak to you, even the so-called rice grown in this country are sold about 40 something thousand a bag, making it even difficult for the low-income earner to survive. So Buhari's administration was categorized with tears, pain, and sorrow. But like I will say, and from the new slogan in town, renewed hope. So I hope I hope that this government will do better than the Buhari administration.
Okay, so we've been able to touch the legislative reforms, the executive order, the infrastructure. We still have some aspects, which is the ease of doing business.
Correct.
I think for every business person watching, they might have a lot of things to say pertaining to ease of doing business. I mean, I know a couple of people who every single day they complain that settling their goods, bringing their goods into the country is a tug of war.
Yes.
It's almost like some persons were out. We have lots and lots of entrepreneurs that went out of business. I mean, these are people that they have managed their business for 3 years, for 4 years, but all of a sudden things became so terrible. Now, I do not know if I'm speaking for the minority, but would you say that under the Buhari administration, the ease of doing business was just underrated or overrated?
So when Buhari came in, I know the first, I was privileged to be part of the Ease of Business, the NASBA, National Assembly's Business Environment Roundtable, where we focused the first 90 days of the launch of that program on the low-hanging fruits. We identified about 6 categories around the ease of business: how to get capital, starting a business, entry and exit, rule of law, how to enforceability of judgments, and a couple of other indices. So we were able to look at those 6 broad spectrum. And within the first 90 days, they were able to identify some low-hanging fruits. Let's have all government agencies put their requirements online. Let's have all the fees stated so that there is certainty. People know how much they are paying for what, all right? And they know who to go to if you need this kind of licenses. And of course, they also introduced a kind of handshake between agencies so that Ministry of Interior does not give you a license and then immigration gives you something else. That was taken care of under Buhari's administration, at least to a greater extent, so that there is a bit of certainty. However, the economic downturn, which came in 2016, 2017, which coupled with the security issues made foreign direct investment to, take a different posture in approaching Nigeria. However, that level of certainty is required for any economy to grow. And even from the index, ease of doing business index, Nigeria rose significantly from almost 130 something within the first, about almost 50 base points, within the first 2 years by 2017, under the leadership of the Vice President, Dr. Oduwole, and a couple of other, Tony Bashir, and a couple of other people, the Ministry of Trade and Investment, and a couple of other agencies that work together. So we cannot take that away. However, most of those policies were not sustained. They were not sustained beyond that first administration. And then, of course, the Omnibus Law, which was recently Business Environment Law, which was passed late last year, it would have been passed since 2018. But because they didn't also want to give that credit to the former, the 8th Assembly, because of the political issues, they had to push it into the new administration, and then they got distracted with different other issues. COVID came, and then every other person, the priorities changed because of COVID 2020. However, in terms of ease of business, yes, there were clear progress. Now you can go online and register your companies. You can go online and apply for your licenses. Most government, there's what we call the Open Governance Initiative, which was piloted. Some of these were taken from, a wise government should know what's happening across the world
But is it
and
about being
domesticate
able
it.
to- sorry, is
Yeah.
it about being able to register your business?
So beyond registering your business, how easy is it for you to pay your taxes? Are there certainty in terms of taxation?
Where's
Do you
the
know
market?
what's the market? What's the access you have to your market for those who are producing? For those who are, for instance, in the agricultural sector, do we have an opportunity for provision of incentives for farmers? Definitely. Buhari came in with the agri loans, which some people took and never invested in the farms, but these facilities were provided. The humanitarian social investment,
Social investment, the
grants,
poverty alleviation
poverty alleviation
programs.
programs that was done to pay poor people 5,000. Not many
Trader
people
money,
trader
market
money, market
money,
money.
and
All of that put together would have amounted to a lot if it was sustained and it was very transparent. But these things, we didn't have them before Buhari came. We had the yes under Jonathan, all right? But of course, you want to question whether it was used for political purposes. And even under Buhari, you can say that some of those people that got these facilities are also party faithfuls. So the question around transparency and accountability made it seem as if all these achievements were not there. But you just have to admit that.
This brings me to my question, which I would want both of you to answer this question. Can we describe the Buhari administration as a transparent, keyword transparent administration? Now, why I'm asking this question is because I remember during the COVID in 2020, which, I mean, COVID is another angle we're going to also look at briefly. I remember during the COVID time, there were packages, relief packages, for Nigerians because of the stay indoor and the likes. Now, there were stories, there was information that a certain amount were being given to the poor and vulnerable, to help them since we can go out to work. Right. Now, many of us will say we may not be the poor and vulnerable, but who were this monies going to? Now, the reason why I'm asking this question, the area of transparency, I'm trying to marry the two of them together, because I remember then there was a report on one of the big TV stations in the country. Some persons in the northern part of the country, they had an interview. It's more like when you send relief packages, you do something for people. They would say, oh, thank you, the government brought this for us, and we are happy. Now, these were supposed to be COVID relief funds. But when the vox pop was going on, when the interview was going on, one of them said, we want to thank the government for always giving us this money. It didn't sound like something that was just given to them for the first time for COVID. Do you get? It sounded like something they are always getting. Now, I started that 2020, I had the question in my head, and I kept asking that question. Now, if these people are saying we are thanking the government for always giving us this money, could it be that this money is being given to them on a separate base, but they're telling it as COVID relief fund? Were they told what to say? Were they made to believe something else? So that is where I am trying to get to the issue of transparency. I mean, there are so many areas we could point out when you talk about transparency. So would you really describe Buhari's government as a transparent government?
There were lots of hopes when Buhari administration was coming in 2015, and one of the promises he made was he was going to fight corruption headlong. Why people like us wanted a switch in government was so that we'll be able to unearth the level of corruption that has actually happened under this administration. It will surprise you to know that in the history of Nigeria, both post-military and now in democracy, there have not been any government that is as corrupt as the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. There are lots of corruption allegations flying everywhere. It's from Minister of Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, the chief of the late Abakari, chief
Yeah.
of staff, and the host of many of them, names to mention. Yeah, Fabios and the rest of them, a lot of corruption cases. I will expect this new administration, not minding of being of the same political party, to do a proper investigation and auditing. Now, one I just read before getting to the studio is the issue of the Nigerian Air.
But yeah.
A lot of money was invested in that project, and at the end of the day, one aircraft was flown into Nigeria on Friday, only for us to see Ethiopia Airline, what do you call it? Registration number on it. Then the explanation of it's a joint venture, Ethiopia Airline has 46% and the rest of them. Buhari administration is one of the most corrupt administration in Israel. He might not be aware, like he always says, I'm not aware. But Buhari administration is one of the most corrupt administration. We have issues of where billions of naira were used in Bauchi to train people to know how to repair GSM phones by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and the rest of them. A lot to mention. So, Buhari administration cannot, I think maybe that's why the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed, Asiwa, you just said a few days ago, that even you are in Daura or in
Nigeria
Niger,
Republic,
when the time comes, will come knocking, because I know certainly he's going to come knocking, because there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. The money that were released in the dying minutes of the trickle of this administration, of the former administration, to pay caution for the removal of the subsidy and the rest of them, a lot of corruption, a lot of corruption.
I mean, the borrowings.
The borrowing. Now, the
Few
borrowing
days
were not
you're
the
living,
borrowing
few
were
days
not
you're living.
commensurate with the infrastructure development my brother talked about. A lot of questions to be asked, and I think the former administration has a lot to tell Nigeria with what they did with our Commonwealth. So our Buhari administration cannot be exempted when it comes to corruption.
Do you think that this administration, I mean, the Tinubu-led administration, do you think that, I mean, don't forget, the former president said something similar. I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody. And everyone was expectant, and we're like, oh yes, he is going to fight this thing head on. He's going to, he's not going to look at, like how we say, look at your face. You know, he's not going to mind whether you're my friend or not my friend. But it seems that at the end of his administration, we got to understand what that means. Like, so now
the same president who spoke on national TV of the 97 and 5%, 95 and 5% will not be seen as somebody that is not for everybody, and I'm for everybody, I'm not for anybody. Now, one thing Buhari forgot to understand, the former president forgot to understand, was democracy was different from military regime. I think he found it difficult to differentiate the two all through his administration. Now, in the military regime, there's a decree. In democracy, there's a process. It has to go through the process. Now, he failed to understand that, and it affected him. Now, when you talk about Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he's not just when it comes to politics, I put it to him, he's a guru in this game. He's bright, he's strategic, he's a strategist, in quote. He's somebody that I know would do well for Nigerians till, in quote, the courts decide to say anything. But between now and then, I know, like he said he knows a lot of Nigerians did not vote for him. But I know Ahmed Tinubu is someone that will prove to Nigerians that he actually deserves the votes that were not actually given to him. So I believe Ahmed Tinubu will do better than the Buhari administration, because one, as Lagos State Governor, he laid the blueprint that every governor, the Fashola, the Ambode, and the Sonolu are working, and we are seeing Lagos. What was Lagos economy before he became governor of Lagos State? And what's Lagos economy today now? Lagos is like a country within a country. So, with all these antecedents, we believe there are better days ahead for Nigerians.
do you share a separate opinion?
Yes. Well, separate route, but same destination. Because around the question of transparency, Buhari's government was the most opaque government we've ever had. You had cabals within cabals, and it was obvious. You know, you would see the DSS coming for the police, DSS trying to arrest EFCC, EFCC trying to arrest DSS, and the government was just extremely not well coordinated.
Yes.
And you see people who are in positions that you'll be the absurdities that came out of that government. Look at the monetary sector. Look at the CBN. The CBN, the currency round tripping, whereby you get it at an amount, and then you set it almost 300 or 400%. It was chaotic, and that's one of the reasons why there was a huge huge dark cloud on the economic policies of the government, because you want to be sure that what exactly are you guys trying to drive at? Why don't you have a uniform forex regime whereby investors, exporters, students, everybody can get it, so there's no incentive for corruption even within the central bank? So it's very important to know that he got it flat and wrong. There was a lot of chaos around that. And even the policies, there were a lot of inconsistencies in the policy. So at the end of the day, you want to know who is advising this guy. Where are these decisions coming from? Do they subject them to thorough policy analysis? All right, the process of policy development, where you introduce the policy, where you debate the policy, where you analyze and de-risk those policies, because you would tell that these policies will lead to unintended consequences.
Yes.
And you put strategies in place to ensure that those consequences, either on students, on elderly people, on weak people, people who are unemployed, all of that does not, blow up. But almost every economic policy that Buhari brought blew up in his face. And at the end of the day, we had to question it. So that question of transparency was not there. We understood that there was a cabal, even from his own family. The first lady came out to say, my husband's government has been hijacked. So it means that there is more to it than meet the eye.
Exactly.
And you see, when he refused to come out to speak to Nigerians, I knew that this guy was not in control of his government. All right?
Okay.
Now, the question is whether it was a personal issue or a systemic issue. You might say personally he's not a corrupt person, but if he says he's not aware, it means people are taking advantage of his ignorance. So that was a big blink in the light or in the output of the past administration, and we hope that this current government would learn those lessons very early and choose to travel on a different road, than former President Muhammadu Buhari.
Okay, so as we get set to wrap up, I'll just very briefly, we'll work in this part. We'll work with percentage. So in the area of education and health, how many percent would you give the administration? 0%. 0%.
Education, I will give maybe 20, 30.
Health.
Health, because of the two big issues we had, I would say maybe 35.
Okay.
35.
Just 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the area of support to states, how many percent?
No, he did well.
He did well.
He did well.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the
bailouts and all those.
International appointments held by Nigerians.
He sponsored and supported a loan for Nigerians across party lines, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll commend him.
So let's look at the creative industry and sports.
Yeah, he did well as well. He introduced this loan for the creative industry, which sponsored most of these movie producers, and a lot of Nigerian movies, shot up, within that period. But for sports, it's a bag of. The first 4 years was chaotic because of the sports minister who knew nothing about sports. Yeah.
Digital economy.
Digital economy, I think he did.
I think he did well.
Did well.
However,
He did
the
well.
the ban on cryptocurrency and
a blow.
the forex crisis, which was tied to the threat around whether they are using Bitcoin to sponsor insurrection and all that, and then the ban on cryptocurrencies and blockchain and all this adoption, I think that wasn't good enough. This is 21st century.
Okay, solid minerals.
Well, no, he did a lot. Yeah, the mining leases and licenses. He did a lot of, and then artisanal mining. There was a comprehensive policy on artisanal mining. All right, and that was very important. And the potential, the infrastructure that is on ground already, under this last administration of the minister and then the Minister of State, I think they've laid solid foundation for the development. A couple of clients and friends are already showing interest in mining, and I have seen licenses, agreements have been signed, investors from Canada, from Ghana, from South Africa, and Australia, who have a huge mining industry. They are already here in Nigeria, and they are doing well.
Okay, so in overall, Right. In overall, how, what will he be taking home with? If this were to be an examination, what will he be taking home with?
Security was
Over 100.
very poor. Security, welfare, economy, poor, poor, poor. So I would say 30%.
You even tried a lot. I think, like I told someone on Twitter, I said he will be going home with I'm not aware. Because the truth about it was that he failed woefully. The hopes were high and it dashed
Yeah,
over
the hopes were so high.
Look at the number of people who died. It's in this part of
Yes.
the world that we now compare the number of people who died in one administration to another.
Terrible.
The number of people who died between
Insecurity.
2015 and today is alarming. It has never happened, even in the Civil War. I'm not sure we had this number of people that who lost their lives. The Kaduna Abuja way was now completely almost an impossible
Yeah.
route. To
Most
go.
people couldn't travel
up to now, as we
across the
speak-
country.
As we speak up to now, the train has not commenced operation yet.
You're gonna give him zero.
So security zero, education zero. The schools were shut down for months. Zero. Health care, the same thing. Even if the president had to stay out of the country for over 100 and something days for treatment, if the health sector was actually functioning well, he wouldn't have been doing that. Now, see, the truth about it is, I think someone said he wasn't anticipating what he actually got into when
Yeah,
he got into
wasn't
government.
prepared.
But I think he wasn't prepared.
Okay.
When he got there, he was overwhelmed by the myriad of problems and challenges
And the personal health
and personal
circumstances.
health thing and all that. And I'm sure by the time he goes back home today and begins to read newspapers by himself, I'm sure he will know that.
He actually said something yesterday that he's looking forward to going back to his cows and his farm
Farm.
because they are easier to control than Nigerians.
Yes, he did say
He-
that.
he
At some
said
point,
that.
he became
said-
overwhelmed.
Okay, so he said that.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting because a man who has not been able to grow his cattle from 150 for over 20 years will easily say that. So it's just that we didn't assess Buhari well. We gave him an assignment that was more
Beyond
than
him.
his capacity to handle.
Okay, so now that we know that, I mean, I wouldn't want to say all eyes are on this administration because I might just be overbloating and overfeeding everything. It may not be the true state of things, but it is renewed hope. 2023. That is what the mantra is for the Buhari-led path. I mean, sorry, the Tinubu-led path, who is the current president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I do hope that my guests have been able to do justice to some of these, burning questions that you have in different areas as regarding to the past administration. Thank you so much, Barrister Ajewale, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
And comrade, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will stay with us because we still have more things for you. We have a documentary, the May 29 documentary. We also have a vox pop, hearing from Nigerians what they think about, this particular day, and of course the administration, and of course rating the previous administration and what the next administration is going to be all about. My name is Cynthia Agbo, and this is Rapid